Behold, the glorious Nekros Warframe, the best frame for all of the things, except for the things they are not the best at. Nekros makes more loot, so yeah, that's enough said, but also has other very relevant abilities, and when you're looking at the different loot frames, of which there are a few, Nekros has a few really major advantages. The first one is that Nekros doesn't require an augment, so you can just get Nekros, and you're desecrating, you're cooking with gas, and making more loot. Great stuff. The second thing is that Nekros is really stable. Nekros can sustain himself using the loot ability. Nekros' passive heals him a little bit when stuff dies nearby, and then you can create a really popular efficiency and sustainability loop with Desecrate's Augment Despoil that makes it cost health instead of energy, and then it makes health orbs, so as long as you pick those up, you will stay alive, and you can use Equilibrium to get an insane amount of energy out of that, with which to spam his other abilities. So what the hell do those do? Well, Soul Punch is mostly a Tenno-Space program ability. You punch a dude and they go real far. Perfectly acceptable ability, not amazing, but it's fine. It yeets a dude out of the way. The Augment is an instant targeted ranged revive. Oh baby, and it drains all of your energy as a cost, but you remember that despoil equilibrium thing we were talking about? Nekros is one of those where obviously making more loot is good, but once you know that certain other mods exist in the game, it just gets better. And Soul Punch with Soul Survivor, the augment that revives people, is really, really, really powerful. It can save you a huge amount of time at range. You could just boop and the person's back to life from like 30 meters away. It's good stuff. Terrify, probably the worst ability we're going to discuss in this kit, but it's not terrible in the context of Nekros' kit. It makes enemies not attack you. That's good. It makes them run away from each other. That's bad. But it's not the end of the world. It does reduce their armor by a little bit. That's not the hugest deal. You're making them turn away from you, which means it's hard to get headshots. I think this is broadly a pretty bad ability, but only in the context of the ability to swap it for another ability. It's really not so bad as a default skill. The augment makes enemies slow, which is cool. They can become very, very slow. That's fine. The big thing about this ability, though, is that if you weren't trying to group enemies up anyway, you kind of just might as well spam out this ability. I almost feel like it's fair for Terrify to be not as powerful because Nekros has so much energy, access to the ability to make so much energy with that powerful despoil equilibrium loop. And even just desecrating enemies to make more energy orbs means that Terrify is going to have a lot of fuel. So it's okay if it's kind of a weaker tool because it's almost free in the context of the kit. So that's really good. And then we get to Shield of Shadows. Shadows of the Dead has an augment that's damage reduction for all the shadows you summon, and Shadows of the Dead is already summoning enemies, which will, draw fire for you. This ability is really good. It might be a pain to keep active, but again, the energy fuel is really pretty much there because the despoil equilibrium thing. And again, Desecrate still makes a little energy. So really good stuff. It protects things in multiple ways. It gives enemies other things to shoot at. Shield of Shadows directly gives you damage reduction and quite a bit of it. It's a good ability. I do think that Soul Punch, Terrify, and Shadows of the Dead are underwhelming abilities in the context of the rest of the game, but Nekros is pretty good at being actually pretty balanced. Like the cost of being able to make more loot out of more bodies, which is something that is ubiquitously useful in Warframe, is that Nekros isn't really that good at anything else. Shadows of the Dead is a good ability, but it's kind of an awkward way to defend an objective. It's kind of an awkward way to become tanky, and making the more loot does put you at risk of dying if you don't get to the corpses to retrieve the health orbs. So that is a concern as well. Overall, Nekros is a surprisingly balanced Warframe that is very, very good at making more loot. It's good at making it without an augment. Also very good at having a lot of energy, really good at carrying other abilities if you swap something in for Terrify, because you can make so much energy. Nekros is great overall, very well-rounded, good generalist, not very good at anything specific, doesn't reduce the game to just being about a bunch of Nekroses, because Nekros isn't really that good at anything but making more loot, which is something you want to do, but then it becomes a trade-off. Fantastic and, might I say, fairly balanced Warframe. Now, I know what you're thinking. Nekros must be my favorite Warframe. Isn't that right?